What's up, guys? My name is Trevor Steele with Flat Top Paramotors. That right there is the SkyTap Angel, and today we're gonna give you our first impressions. The SkyTap Angel is a copy of what is the flat top paramotor that you can see behind me over here. Now, like all of you on the internet, when I first saw the SkyTap Angel, I, along with everyone else, fully expected it to be better. Everything I had seen on the internet, everything everyone said about the SkyTap showed that it had some form of improvements. And let me tell you, I was really hopeful that that was gonna be better than the flat top in some way so that we could improve on our product, so we could see something that's an improvement and grow. But upon receiving it, let me tell you, I was far from impressed. I was really quite disappointed. This was so disappointing, I wanted to return it right after I got it. Let's get started with first impressions. First thing I noticed was it wasn't very well packed coming to us. We actually got some major damage here in shipping to us. It didn't seem like it was professionally packed. Now, after we got it out of the box, it was really difficult to assemble. He had actually warned us that it was gonna be really difficult. We didn't buy it straight through him, but he warned the guy who bought it. It was going to be quite difficult because of this round top. It was really hard to get this thing fully assembled and attached together. It actually took us about 10-15 minutes to put the thing together, which is quite a bit longer. Then after we pulled it out, put it all together, you'll notice right off the bat, we've got Kevlar netting sticking out 4 or 5 inches, fraying at the end. On every single cage piece, there's 1, if not 2 pieces of huge netting just sticking out. And that was an initial, like, the build quality, attention to detail, and overall quality of this build is so poor. I mean, look at this. He didn't glue that, so that's just a knot that could come out at any time. We've got 4 or 5 inches of extra netting that, what, I'm supposed to go cut? I mean, that's not how you deliver a product to a customer. Then on top of that, almost every single Velcro piece is poorly sewn like this. It looks like a child sewed that, and the Velcro is way too long. I don't know why you wouldn't just cut that. The build quality and assembly quality of this thing is pretty piss poor. This piece of Velcro, which is such a key piece, it attaches the harness onto the frame. This piece of Velcro is so weak, I probably could rip it with a hand. Maybe 2, maybe not, but it's so flimsy, so flimsy. He totally screwed that up. If he had just copied the flat top, that wouldn't be a problem. And again, the sewn quality right there, not that great. On top of that, you can see here on this gas tank, he still has the original rivets. He can't, or the original holes, he can't use the old gas tanks. So we had to switch to a different gas tank, but he didn't bother to heat off and melt off these 2 little tabs. So now you have extra weight of that. We're gonna weigh it here in a minute. Some of the netting pieces are a little bit slack and loose, which is quite disappointing once again. But right off the bat, the seat on this thing is like quite a few inches smaller, so it's harder to sit into, especially for bigger guys. And he's got this giant buckle here, which adds tons of weight and hassle. Yeah, so that was my kind of initial impressions of the SkyTap. What do you feel right here, Austin? You give me your thoughts.
So, a couple things. I've been welding aluminum for almost 2 years. My aluminum welds are bad, but I mean, these are terrible. I could do better than this. If you look down here, I mean, this is just garbage. It's just very inconsistent all the way around. Once again, as Trevor said, if you look, these Velcro straps look like they were done by a 7-year-old. Everything's inconsistent. This isn't very smooth. The plastic connection pieces, it just doesn't look nice and finished like a flat top does.
Another thing is that there's a hole right here in the cage piece, but it's large enough that it actually creates a problem that's not a problem on the flat top. There's a giant hole.
They entirely missed welding this section right here. They've got little holes in their welds here, which can cause corrosion, start cracking. That's a big no-no.
I still have hopes that there are some things about the SkyTap that it does better that we're going to discover as we start flying it. And this is, again, just a first impressions. This is just what we see looking at the frame. We haven't torn the whole thing apart, so take that for what it is. But initial impressions, its build quality is pretty piss poor. You know, you buy a $7,000-8,000 paramotor, you expect it to be quite nice, not something where their netting is wrapped around a random beam and there's things hanging off and I gotta go and I gotta cut that and I gotta cut that and I gotta melt it with a lighter and I gotta cut that, and it was disappointing. And let's not even begin to talk about the customer service and purchasing process. So I had to go through a customer to get them to buy this from Andy. And let me tell you this, we sent him an email asking to buy it, no response for like a week. He responds one email, right? So then we respond back and we wait another week before he responds again. Then he's asked for the payment. So we send him the payment. We don't get any confirmation that he's received the payment. We have to wait another week before he responds. Then we have to go 2-3 weeks before he responds again, telling us that it's done. But then he asks us to call him before we ship it. So we try calling 3, 4, 5 different days. No response, have to wait another 2 weeks before he actually calls us back before he sends it. The communication and the customer service on this was pretty terrible. I couldn't get any response out of him. I couldn't get any communication out of him. I couldn't get anything out of him. The guy who bought it for us was extremely disappointed. He was, again, expecting this to be better and thinking he'd buy it off me when we're done. After he opened it up, he wanted no part of it. He said, no, keep it. I don't want any of it. So that was pretty disappointing. So that's one nice thing about Flat Top. I mean, we got a whole team here. We got a whole team. It's a whole company. We're constantly on the phone. Anytime you call, 7 days a week, including Saturday, Sunday, people answer. We're shipping stuff same day, next day. You order a part, it sends right to you. We have everything in stock. Now, for reference, let's take a quick gander here at the Flat Top. Each cage piece tightly put together. You don't see the ends. It's not sticking out 4 or 5 inches like the other one. Each weld is very professionally done, as we pay lots of money to have them very well put together. There's no skipped spots. There's no empty holes where there's no weld. It's all very nicely put together. No cage piece has 4 inches, 5 inches, look at this, of freaking netting coming off the ends. Things are tight. Each Velcro is actually made specifically so that the end piece right here goes over and you don't have to put the end or the end spot on the top or the sides. I mean, each Velcro is actually thought through, and you can see the sewing on the Velcro much nicer than the sewing on the SkyTap. Everything very well put together, professionally made. This one's obviously beat up. It's got 50 hours on it. It's my personal unit and Dell's personal unit, and somebody put quite a bit more time into building the Flat Top.
Yeah. I mean, like,
and
look at this
SkyTap
plastic cage piece connection. It's been perfectly lathed, so it's perfectly smooth. If you look on here, it just doesn't look. The problem with something sticking out like this is as your lines glide up the cage piece, it gets stuck right there. Yeah. You want no resistance on the edge of that right there, and there's none. The actual cage, the backside of the cage is warped outwards. It's just not as nice. I mean, here's the thing, right? I look at a Scout. Scout's made well. Totally different paramotor, different style, all that stuff, different story. But a Scout, it's manufactured well. That's not. Okay, guys, we are gonna weigh in the SkyTap and see what it weighs without the engine. Comes in at 13.99 pounds. That is exactly 1 pound heavier than the Flat Top in the same configuration right there. We are gonna weigh in the harness and comfort bars. That comes in at 9.91, 10.02, 10.13, so we'll call it 10 pounds even for the comfort bars, seat board, harness, carabiners, the whole shebang. We got a Flat Top harness right here. We've got the carabiners and sewn runners on that he has. Let's see how heavy we are. We are at 7.05 pounds. That is almost 3 pounds lighter than the SkyTap's harness. So this is the mounting plate that he uses. The reason that we use a mounting plate is because the Vittorazzi had a very short or skinny bolt pattern. The bolts were not that far apart, so if you could flex it more easily up and down, which caused Peller to hit gas tanks. So what we did is we created a mounting plate where you attach the Vittorazzi engine straight to this, not the motor mounts here. You attach it straight to this, then motor mounts to the frame. We do it this way because the more common thing is the prop to hit down here because you hit downward. You want more resistance downward. We changed that to be sideways, reducing the width downward, reducing the effectiveness downward and increasing it sideways, which sideways is unimportant because that cage piece is going to flex into the prop regardless if the prop flexes or not if you smack in sideways. But the frame isn't going to bend up into the prop. The prop is now going to go down into the gas tank. So you just increased your prop strike chances with this mounting plate. One little thing Austin pointed out, so you can notice that there's netting wrapped around this beam. The beam is actually starting to cave in right here and will continue to do that over the life of this paramotor. This thing is also, it's not flat, so the frame was not built to be flat. Austin here discovered one more thing. This bar right here is actually made out of steel, not aluminum. Is that correct? Yeah, just cheap steel.
Cheap steel, and you can see on the inside, and I don't know if you can pick it up on the camera, it's actually rusting already. It's brand new, and it's already rusting inside of there. Part 1 of 2 is just our initial impressions, just getting the frame, looking at it, putting it together. Part 2 is going to be us flying it, tearing into it in more detail, and figuring out exactly how the thing works in flight, on the ground, carrying it around, motor mounted, all of that stuff. But for part 1, it's just our initial impressions.